Hey guys, it's Dominic Flux and I'm here today with Lauriane Legné. She is a GIA and FGA certified gemologist. So we're here to ask her a whole bunch of questions about everything there is to know about opals, from the different rarities, where they're found, the different qualities, how to identify fakes. So really everything in a nutshell that you need to know when buying an opal.
Hi guys, nice to meet you all. So I'm here to answer all your questions, and hopefully after the end of the video you'll learn how to buy an opal and recognize one. So just before you start with the questions, I want to do a small experience during the video that people will be able to see. I'm going to put some 3 opal rough from Ethiopia into the water. I'm not going to say right now what it's for, but we'll see afterwards. So just warning you.
Very exciting!
Okay, let's start. What do you want to know? The opal also has a hardness that it's a slightly soft stone, and we're going to talk more about that later on. It has this hardness of 5.5 to 6.5.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes it softer than corundum. We talked about rubies, sapphires in another video. It's a little bit softer than that, but it's a hard enough stone to put in the ring.
Yeah.
Just have to be careful with it.
That's the thing, like a lot of people today do like opal for engagement rings. It is a much softer stone, so you do have to be very careful, and even especially if it's like a faceted opal, over the years you might have to consider getting it slightly refaceted because it can turn fuzzy, or even replace it after 10 years if it really starts to wear out.
You have to know, if you put it in a ring, an engagement ring that you wear every day, you're gonna get it. How do I say this? It's gonna get used.
Yeah, it's like a car, a little wear and tear over the years.
So. Of course, and you can get it replaced after a few years for another opal that you like, or another stone, and that's kind of normal. It's a soft stone. We'll go through it later on in the video, but I'm gonna tell you why also it's not a good idea to put it in water.
Okay.
Unlike the thing I did here.
Yeah.
And why it's not really, how to take care of it, how to wash it, how to wash your jewelry, and how to be careful with the rings that you have.
Yeah.
So there are 3 main types of opals.
Okay.
And then there are a lot of varieties that we're going to see also later on in the video. So the 3 main types of opals are the solid opals, Boulder, matrix.
Okay.
Those are the 3 main types. So what you have to know is that solid opal is the whole stone, and it sounds stupid when you say it, it has to be a opal. Okay. Everything has to be an opal.
So it can't basically have any kind of like pockets of
sandstone. Sand, clay stone, ironstone, you see basalt, you see a lot of rough mixed in with the opal, generally in Mexico, in Ethiopia, in Australia. You can't have that. You have to have a solid, full opal to be called a type 1.
Okay, and this is probably a higher quality because there's no like imperfections.
Exactly, so that's the type of opal that you want if you want the expensive and the rare one.
Okay.
That's one type of opal. The second and third type of opal are alike. They're like in the sense that you have some rough in it. So that's an example. Matrix opal. So you have patches of opal into the stone, and then you have the rough sand, as we call it. It's not really sand, but it's a hardened sand. So sandstone, ironstone, it can be different colors. It can be slightly red, it can be orangey, it can be white as you see it here. But it's an opal mixed in with some other rough stone.
Okay.
And same thing with the matrix and Boulder. One is veins, opal veins into the stone, and the other one are patches of opals.
Okay.
And sometimes you can have a full opal on top of the stone, cut that you can only see the play of color, and then under it you have the rough. So that's still not a solid opal. Okay. Because you have other things than the opal.
Yeah.
So that's the 3 main types of opals.
Okay.
Then you go into the variety. What do you want to start with?
Do we start with the different colors?
Yeah, of course. So you have to know that the colors in opals, you can have a lot of different colors, but you have to know the difference between the base color and the actual play of color in the opal.
Yes.
So when you judge an opal and the quality of the opal, you look at the base color, and then you look at the colors that you have as a play of color. So
because I think the wider the range of the play of color, the higher the value. So
exactly.
I think if you just have like 1 or 2 colors, like blue, I think, versus if you have multiple colors and even red, it's a higher value.
Well, if you look at Australian opals, they're the ones that have the strongest, let's say, play of color and patterns. So if you have blue colors and green colors in the stone, it's beautiful colors, but it's not the most rare or expensive. If you have fuchsia color with yellow, orange, red, blue, and green, then it's going to be a whole bunch of rare colors put together, you know?
Yeah.
So that's going to be more expensive. But what I'm talking about is here, that's an Australian opal, and we're going to also go back to it. The base color is gray. It has all kinds of colors, but that's a play of color. The base color you want to look at is gray. And then you have a base color of black.
Wow, it's really beautiful.
Thank you.
Stunning, yeah.
And you have some other base colors here that you can see. So here you have a base color of blue. And here you have the base colors of light blue, translucid. So the colors of the opal, you can have a lot of different colors. But you can't have a base color of pink. You can't have a base color of yellow. So those are, well, this one is yellow, but it's called orange.
Okay.
In the world of opals. And it's not considered base color because it does not have a play of color.
Okay.
So that's just a yellow opal.
Okay.
Doesn't have a base because it doesn't have a play of color. But anyways, we can look at the fun part and then the rarest for the end. What do you think?
Perfect. Sounds good.
Perfect. So I'm going to start with the most common opal that most people don't know about.
Okay.
The Peruvian opal.
Yes.
So Peruvian opal, you can have purple colors, blue colors, green colors, pink, and transparent. I think I said blue. Did I say blue?
Yes.
And blue. And those don't have a play of colors. So these opal are totally common opal because they don't have anything going on in them except a few sand inclusions or a few rough inclusions in it that you can see. So it's a beautiful color, but it's not the most sought after because it doesn't have a play of color.
Yeah, it's almost like a very milky stone.
Exactly.
I actually I wouldn't think of an opal when I would think of this because of the lack of play of color.
Because it's not the opal that's represented on TV. It's not the opal that people wear. What most people know are the white opal, black opal. That's all.
Yeah.
But these they're less known, but really appreciated in South America for the wide range of colors. And you can have some transparent ones, and you can have some opaque ones. I don't have the purple as an example or the green ones because they're a little bit rarer in Peru. But those are what's called the common opal.
Yeah, and just a question. So I was reading also that these kinds of colors, when they're exposed to light over long periods of time, can change color.
It depends.
It depends. Okay.
It depends. When an opal is stable, and that can also account for Mexican, the orange ones, the white ones, and the Australian ones. When it's stable, the color is not going to change. When an opal is unstable, it can crack, the color can change. And let's say this one, in a month or two, if it's unstable, can become opaque.
Okay, and how would you know? You basically have to get a GIA report, right? Or some sort of...
Even the GIA won't be able to tell you much.
Okay.
What you have to do normally, so when you go and buy your opals, the suppliers are supposed to know how old your opals are.
Okay.
So, for example, this is a rough Ethiopian opal.
Yeah.
And I know from my supplier that it's 7 years older. It's 7 years and more in age when it was found. So I know that it's stable because an opal is unstable for the first, I'd say, 3 years maximum.
Okay.
And then you know if it's gonna crack or not.
Yeah.
You know if it's the color's gonna change, if it's gonna become opaque or not. This common opal was just cut a few months ago, so it could be unstable. We don't know yet, so we're gonna take a look at it in a few months, see if it's more opaque or not. It might become like this one, a little bit more opaque, but doesn't crack.
Okay.
That's also what happens when you have hydrophane opals. So that's another variety that we can look into. So the reason why I put these opals in the water is that you have hydrophane opals. So those are opals that can be Mexican, orange, yellow, white, some Australian.
Okay.
They soak up the water. So that's why you don't take baths with your ring. You don't go into the beach, into the swimming pool. You don't go into the ocean in case you have an hydrophane opal. Why? Because as soon as the opal starts absorbing water, it starts to lose its color.
Interesting.
So that's not a stable opal. And soon enough, maybe at the end of the interview, you'll just have like a yellow yolk in the middle of the opal and everything else is going to be transparent.
Okay, but that's not... Okay, just to clarify, that's not for every single opal.
No. Some of them are going to be hydrophane.
And how do you know this?
You test it.
What happens if it is? then.
So if you panic, if you do your laundry, or if you go into the swimming pool and suddenly your ring loses all its color, don't panic. It's okay. Opals soak up water even in the natural state, even in the rough. It happens.
Yep.
Opals are made up of 3 to 21% of water, even without your help. So what to do is you just put it on the windowsill, on a Kleenex, anything, and you leave it to dry for a few days.
And
It should return to normal.
Okay.
So if you have a few accidents, no trouble. But don't do this every day, because that means that your opal might crack one day.
Okay.
Because it's not stable enough. And you soak up the water, you let it dry. You soak up the water, you let it dry. It's not good for anyone. So once in a while, no problem. The color's gonna return, your opal is gonna be good as new.
Okay.
But don't do it every day. So that's why it's also important, and it's a variety of opal, Ethiopian opal. You have to know what you're getting into, and you have to be careful with it.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, we're definitely going to touch on maintenance at the end so that we can address this for sure.
Exactly. And you have a few Peruvian opal, common opals that are Ethiopian. That's why when you cut them, they're more transparent. And then over the few months, they dry out and it becomes more, they settle into their real color. They become more opaque. That's okay. And that's also why you don't use ink on your opals, and you don't use oil on your opals, because that's an example of a white opal that was soaked up in ink. So normally you don't have purple opals like that.
Yeah. Okay.
That's just the ink that soaked it up into the stone, and it's done. You can't turn it back to normal once the ink is in the opal. It's gonna dry out, but the ink is gonna stay.
Yeah. This is so interesting. Was this an accident? Or?
It was an accident.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
It was an accident. Someone tried to protect the stone for plating, so rhodium plating on the ring, and they inked the stone to protect it, but instead they just dyed it.
Oh yes, because rhodium plating, we did this in the last video. We apply ink to keep the rhodium from touching it, and so that's why.
Don't do that on Ethiopian opals.
Yeah. Very cool.
So we saw the common opals, we saw the Ethiopian opals. An interesting opal is the doublets and triplets and the mosaic, so assembled opals.
Okay.
So when you have a lower budget, when you want to buy something beautiful, a black opal from Australia, but you don't have the budget to buy it, you do doublets or triplets. So let me explain what a doublet is to you. So you see on the bottom is sandstone, so that's a rough you find commonly with opal, and then on the top you have the blue Australian opal. And it's a thin layer that's cut up and put together. So that's a less expensive opal, you have less precious material. It's more affordable, but you still have on top of it the Australian blue that you want, or the color that you want.
But this isn't man-made, this naturally occurs.
It doesn't naturally occur.
Oh, okay, it doesn't, okay.
It doesn't, this is all man-made. It's cut so that you have a thin membrane of opal on top of a rough.
Okay, okay.
So this is man-made, and it's made so that people have a lower budgeted opal, but still have the beautiful black play of color from Australia.
Okay, yeah. Because if they didn't put this doublet, for example, opal being so fragile, it would disintegrate. You would crack it in no time.
And this is also a man-made one. It's called a mosaic opal. So they put multiple small pieces of opal together in it, and it does this kind of mosaic. And that's even less expensive. That's like $10 a stone. So don't go buying this with $300. And this one is a triplet. So you have the base that's onyx for this time, so black stone, and then you have a thin layer of opal, and then on top of it you can see a colorless dome, and that's either quartz or glass. Or
really? Not even resin? It's really, okay.
It's gonna be, you can have resin sometimes, but that's really the low quality.
Yeah, okay.
The best case scenario, you want quartz, because it's harder.
Yeah.
Glass is gonna be the lower quality also. So that one is glass, because it's a mosaic, it's not an expensive stone, they didn't want to spend too much time on it.
Okay.
But these two, that's more quartz on top of it. So these are triplets, and you have some beautiful colors, but you don't pay the price of it. And as you can see, it's a gray base, and then a thin layer, and then a transparent dome on it. So those are assembled opals.
Yeah. It's still beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It's still very beautiful.
And it's for people on budget, and it's easier to handle. And if you take a triplet on a ring, it's not gonna break as easily because you have a quartz on top of it that protects it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's also an option for rings. If you want to keep the opal a little bit longer in good condition.
Okay.
And then we go to some fun colors. we have the Mexican fire opal. So that's another variety. And you can have hues of yellow, that's a little bit rare. And then you have hues of orange, fiery orange to brightly red. And this is the type of rough that you can find them too.
Yeah, these ones are really beautiful. The fire opals, it's crazy. They have such a flare. It almost looks like liquid candy when you look at it. It's stunning.
And these can have a play of color.
Yeah.
So you can have the crazy orange color, but also green, blue, fuchsia color. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but it has a beautiful play on color, this one.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the more sought after Mexican fire opal. The less sought after and the less expensive one would be the yellow Mexican fire opal. It's not fiery, it doesn't have any play of color, at least on that one. But it's still pretty to look at, and it's rare to see.
Yeah, exactly.
And the rough, as you can see, it looks like a piece of glass, but you have a precious opal in hand with this one. So those can go, if you go to the low quality like this, a little bit more opaque, you can go to 20 to easily $500 per carat.
Yeah.
For Mexican with fire.
Yeah, and I find that these ones are really fun because the Mexican fire opals, I've seen them in so many bizarre shapes because we were asked this, if you can have them cut in cabochon and in faceted, and you can have both. But these ones come in really groovy shapes all the time. I've seen them. So
they're called freeforms.
Oh, freeforms. Okay.
And why do they do this? Because when you look at stones, and we looked at it earlier, you have sand, as we said, or you have the rough. They don't want the rough. They want it to be more expensive.
I see.
So they do a freeform, beautifully done, but it's all the sand that they had to get out of the stone.
That's why it's like that. Very interesting. Very cool.
That's why it's like that. And that's why you have a lot of free forms in opals. It's to get rid of the sand, but to have still the biggest you can.
Yeah.
And this is another type, this is what we call the Boulder. So you have veins of opal into the rough. So this, you can't really cut out the opal because it's too small.
Yeah.
That was a type 2 opal. But it's still beautiful to cut, and you still have a beautiful color once polished.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, it's really a personal choice, right? You can love this much more than you love any of these.
Of course. So. And you can buy this one without going bankrupt.
Yep.
Because the bankruptcy is coming. So this is one type, and oh, I forgot to show you, but this is a rough, what it looks like for a Peruvian common opal, the blue one. This is what rough looks like. So you still have the sand attached to it.
Yep.
And most of the time they try to get rid of it or use it to their advantage to have a beautiful included stone. So the next type of opal I wanted to show you are the Ethiopian ones. So this is the typical white opal that most of the world knows about. So you can have it in the yellow hues, you can have it in white, grayish, but it's mostly white opal. You can have it in crystal, so that means that you can see through it.
Yeah.
And you can have it like this one, opaque. So this is the most well-known opal. It's from Ethiopia, most of it. You can also find some whitish opals from Australia and Peru. You can have whitish opals almost everywhere, but Ethiopia is the main source. It's also the main source of the Ethiopian opals.
Okay.
So if you find Wellow, so it's a place where you can find them. Wellow most of the time are unstable and Ethiopian.
Okay.
So then you have to wait 1 to 3 years. Most of the suppliers, the good suppliers, wait 3 years before selling the opal to be sure that they're stable before cutting. And so those are examples of free forms. As you can see, it's not really really an oval or round. And this one is pretty flat because they wanted to get the sand out of it most. And this one, it has a yellowish tint. It has some beautiful flashy colors. Yeah. The orange, the red, some blue in it, and green. These, they can easily go from $50 a carat for the low quality ones, and I don't have any low quality with me, to easily like $1,000 per carat, depending on the type you have.
But over time, does the Ethiopian opal start to turn yellow?
No.
Can it start to? No? Okay.
When the color is stable, it's stable. It stays that way.
Perfect.
So you're not gonna find any change in the color. If it becomes a little bit more milky, it's because the surface is unpolished or used.
Used, yeah,
so you can just repolish it.
Okay.
Unless you took a bath or went to the beach every day with it, then maybe it's gonna start to be a little unstable, you know. And speaking of unstable, some people treat opals.
Okay.
So it's not well known either, but you can treat opal, and it's called smoked or sugared.
Oh yes, yes, yes. To turn them black, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want to change the color to make them more appealing.
Yeah.
But it's not sugar that changes. Sugar is more like acid.
Yeah.
So don't do this at home. So a perfect example is Andamuka Opal.
Okay.
Andamuka is a place in Australia. It's also one of the first places where they started mining opals. Most of the time on the market, if you hear Andamuka Opal, it's going to be treated.
Okay.
Some of them are not, but most of the time it's going to be treated. So this one, as you can see, has been smoked or sugared, as they say. So they pour it in acid. They use the Ethiopian quality of the opal to wash out and whiten the opal inside. So it's not really soft on the opal. The opal doesn't like that. It's acid. It doesn't like that. And then afterwards they dye it or they smoke it, as they say, to blacken it. So blackening the opal gives you the colors that were in it beforehand more place in the stone. The colors are brighter. You can see the green, you can see the orange. Maybe before that it was a grayish one and you could barely see the colors in it. And how you can see smoked opals, most of the time it's better to see a gemologist for that. But if you see small dots of black into the stone, like it's salted and peppered, the Australian black opal. So my favorite, is it your favorite too?
Yeah, I love it. I love this nice green one.
I think my favorite is this one, the smaller one, where you have some yellow. This is the most expensive one.
Yeah.
This is the rarest, this is the most expensive, this is the one, if you're looking for the best, you go for this one. So Australian black opals, they have different base colors. We touched a bit on it at the beginning. The more the base color is black, the more precious it's going to be. And if you look at this one is all opal. So that's a solid black opal.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to show you a page of the book before I go on, so you can visually see what I'm talking about when I'm talking about base colors. So, as you can see, they have examples of pictures of opals, and you have the base color in a square right under it. So the darker it is, the most precious it becomes.
And is there like a chemical composition for it to be black? Like, is there certain like ingredients, if you will, that are making it that color, or
it's the soil in Australia?
It's just the soil. Okay.
Yeah. It's gonna be in Australia. It's the only place where you're gonna have really the black opals.
Okay.
If you find big combinations of colors, so yellows, fuchsias, blues, orange, greens, anything, you want the most colors with the blackest base color. That's going to be the most expensive. And another feature that you want to look for in Australian opal is the pattern.
Yes.
So patterns in opals, this one is called pinfire. So you can see some small pins, some small points of colors everywhere on the stone. It's well spread. You don't have any dead zones. You don't have any black spots with no colors. So it's all over the stone. And that's a pattern.
Yeah.
Pinfire pattern, super expensive. So for a stone like that, you're going to pay $15,000.
Yeah. Yeah, opal there's such a wide range of price. It's really incredible.
Yeah, you're going to pay this one $20. Can pay this one $15,000. And black opals can go easily $20,000, $30,000 per carat for the black Australian opals. So that one is a big one, but it's not black as a base color, it's gray. So it's not even the most expensive you can find. If you look at the smaller ones, then you have a beautiful black base. This one has some little dead zones, so it's not that expensive. It only has green and blue. So it's not even the best ones out there. So it's really difficult to get the most rare and precious.
Yeah.
So if you want the most sought after Australian black opal, you want to look at the pattern that's called Harlequin.
Harlequin?
Harlequin, like the Joker.
Okay. Cool.
So Harlequin pattern in a black opal is going to be your go-to if you want the most expensive out of all of them.
Okay.
You also got pinfire, Chinese writings. Phenomenon of the play of color is a complicated series of, if you look at it on the microscope, no, not even on the microscope, on even further than that, at the composition of the opal. When you look at on microscopic lens, let's say, you'll have some small spheres, some small spherules that are gonna be different sizes.
Yeah.
And they're gonna be deposited on the stone with layers. It's really more complicated than that, but I'm gonna make it simple as possible. Light reflects on those spherules, those spheres, I'm gonna say. So light reflects on those spheres, and then that light turns red, blue, green, or yellow, depending on the size of those spheres. So it's really a bunch of beads together in a stone with water, and then light reflects on it.
Yeah, and I think basically what it is that the smaller the sphere, the less color there is. So the smaller the sphere, it'll be like blue color, for example, versus if you have much larger spheres, that's when you're going to start to see more colors, and colors like red, which are a lot rarer. So I think that's what it... Yeah.
Exactly, and when you have a pattern, it means that the spheres somehow put themselves together in a symmetrical or organized way.
Yeah.
So that the colors are all organized into a pattern on the stone. So that's rare, it's natural. I mean, it formed millions of years ago.
Yeah.
So when you have a pattern, that's also why it's so expensive. So that means that this one, that the colors are everywhere and there's no pattern to it, there's no rhyme to where the green is. The spheres are a little bit smaller because it has less color, so it's green, but they're not organized. And the less they are organized, the more you're gonna have dead zones.
Yeah.
So that means the light cannot reflect well on the spheres. So if that was what you meant in your question.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you mean by quantities of precious material found under the earth, I mean, in quantities, yes, it's rarer than diamonds.
Oh, very
100
interesting.
times.
Okay.
Diamonds you can find. Diamonds are rare, don't mind me, but you have a lot of it on the market. You have a lot of material. You have enough to satisfy the demand of the world for at least 2,000 years in diamonds. So it's rare. It's a rare stone. It's a hard stone, but it's not that rare.
Okay.
So if you compare the black opal, there'd be 100 diamonds before you find one beautiful black opal, at least.
Okay. All right. So let's touch on synthetics now that we've done all the naturals of how to identify them. I'll let you start.
Let's go. Okay, so synthetic is not as romantic as you think. This is synthetic cubes. You can have all the colors of the rainbows. You have about 95 different colors from that company alone.
This is Gilson Opal?
Gilson Opal.
Yeah.
So this is the best type of synthetic opal. This is the best imitation on the market. But technically, they call it synthetic opal, but it's not a synthetic.
Okay.
Because synthetic material is the same chemical composition and the same crystalline structure as a stone. So it's not a synthetic because the chemical composition is not the same.
Okay.
But it's still the closest we have ever come to creating natural opal. So it's considered synthetic opal.
Okay.
So that's just a little technical glitch in it. You can have mermaid purple, you can have weird green, you can have blue, you can have yellow, you can have all the chemical colors, orange, red, everything you want.
Yeah, you can really tell though that it's synthetic. There's something a little bit about it that doesn't.
It looks a little bit like
right.
plastic.
Yeah.
So in the white color, you might not be able to tell the difference as easily as another one because it might just look like a high quality natural opal from Ethiopia. The way you can tell the difference is that when you look on the side, here you can see columns of colors. That's not natural. You don't see that in natural opal. Here you just see the columns because the color is deposited on the stone. So you see the dots on the top and the columns on the side. That doesn't happen in natural opals, you see? There's no columns of color.
Yeah.
So that's one way to tell if it's synthetic or natural. If the stone is set and you can't really see on the sides, then you look at the play of color and the patterns. So if you look at, I'm gonna just put it in my fingers to show you guys. So if you look at the play of colors in synthetic opals, you can see that you have some green, yellow, orange, but the patches of color don't move. They don't change places. They just stay the same and then change from green to orange, let's say. But if you look at the natural one from Ethiopia, the colors move into the stone. The patches change shape.
Okay. That's a really good indicator, yeah.
It's more alive. This one, the color changes, but it doesn't move. This one, the patterns move, the patterns change shape, and it's not... It comes more alive, it moves inside the stone. So you're gonna see if it's synthetic or natural.
Yeah, that's a really good trick that you don't necessarily need a loop. And
Exactly.
yeah.
And you know, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true most of the time.
Oh, for sure. I mean, if you're paying a really good price for this, for like this kind of color flare, then it's a good indicator that it's synthetic, I would suppose.
Exactly. So those are the best synthetics.
How to care for your opals.
So, are we done here? Look at the yolk. You don't see a lot of colors now. In a few days it disappear completely compared to the beginning of the video.
Yeah.
So this one didn't change much, but you can see that the color attracted to the center of the stone. So it's starting to lose its play of color. Sometimes it takes days, sometimes it takes a few minutes. Depends on the opal you have. And this one didn't change much. So that one maybe not hydrophane, but these two are certainly hydrophane.
Okay.
How to take care of them. So I have a problem. I took a bath with my ring. My opal is like that. It lost all the color. Don't panic. Just put it on the side. Put it on a Kleenex on the windowsill. Not too in the sun directly. Just don't dry it out. Don't kill it. Put it out to dry for a few days. It's gonna turn back to normal.
Yeah. Okay. And do we? I'm guessing we don't use harsh soaps on it. We don't use.
You can
Purell. You take your rings off.
You take your rings off when you work. You take your rings off when you touch water. When you do your dishes, anything, you take your ring off for sure. If you want to wash the ring, you can soak it in water. Not all opals are hydrophane.
Okay.
You have opals that water won't do anything to it.
Yeah.
So you're safe. I'm just talking about a type of opal here that some people have. If you want to wash your Australian opal, you can just have some warm water, not a lot, doesn't need to. You can have your toothbrush, it's not gonna do anything to the surface, it's hard enough. And with the toothbrush, go through your ring, wash it cleanly, use some unscented soap, that's the best. But if you don't want to use any soap, that's okay too, just use water. And warm water so that the dust that's settled in it will be a little bit more soft.
Yeah, exactly. And if there are any jewelers watching this, or if you're going to get your jewelry cleaned out of jewelers, make sure that they do not put in an ultrasound, because that is very harmful to your opal.
Don't put it in the small bottles that you have for jewelry cleaning.
Yeah.
It has chemical agents, don't do that.
Yeah.
Opal is fragile. Don't put it in oil, because if you put an hydrophane opal in oil, the oil is not gonna go away.
Yeah,
So
it's
then
gonna absorb it.
It's gonna absorb it and it's not gonna evaporate.
Yeah.
So you're gonna lose the color in your opal. Don't use any ink. But that's all. It's pretty easy stone to get along with, and it's pretty easy stone to find, because you can have them almost every corner of the world.
Okay. Yeah, that has a really particular. It literally looks like somebody smeared.
So what about the questions? I'm ready.
Keep your opal jewelry in humid cloths.
God, no.
Or every now and then put it into a humid cloth.
Never do that.
Never do that.
Never
okay,
do
so
that.
myth.
Okay. That's like putting your hydrophane opal in water all the time.
Okay, perfect. So
It's not good. If your opal is unstable, you just risk cracking it.
okay.
And I mean, if your opal is stable, it doesn't need water to survive.
Okay. Myth debunked. Don't do it.
Myth, don't do it.
Okay. So I asked this week on Reddit.
And and now I'm trying not to break it.
Oh my god, I actually thought you cracked it for a second when you did this. I was like, oh wow, that's an expensive mistake.
50,000! No, don't worry about it. I said it's a bit too soft for engagement rings, but it's still hard enough for jewelry. So I'm not that worried on dropping it on that surface. I'm not worried about breaking it in my hands. All the opals I have here are stable, except for these little ones. They're not gonna break easily.
Yeah.
So I'm not that worried. That's why I'm not panicking each time I drop one, because I have butterfingers today. And for the geeks out there,
Yeah.
there's an opal that we call on the market Dragon Egg.
Oh, very nice. Okay.
So it's the orange Mexican opal with rough, so it's a Boulder opal. So you have a pocket of fiery orange.
I feel like I've seen this.
You've seen it for sure. So you have a pocket of fiery color plate opal, and then all around it you have the brown pocket of ironstone. And they call it Dragon Egg.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's a Mexican opal.
Okay.
So it's the geeky name that we gave it on the market.
Alright guys, thanks for watching. For this video we are going to be doing a giveaway, and you can choose from one of these beautiful opals. The competition is going to be written down below for any of the instructions, and thanks for watching.
My pleasure.
Thanks for having us, and we'll see you next time.